Qué
¿Tenéis
mala.
sancocho también ahí?
Ujú.
Oh, wow, ok. También
Sí, sí, eso
se come en RD también. Ok.
sí. Y en Puerto Rico también, sí, sí,
Puerto
sí,
Rico,
sí.
ok, Puerto Rico también.
Sí, es un plato caribeño, creo.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a todos. Today I have the great opportunity to talk with a fellow language learner and YouTuber.
Oh, quick temper. Jalen Shabazz, if you don't want to call me quick temper, my real name is Jalen.
And Jalen, if you could sum up your Spanish learning journey in one word, what word would that be?
Long.
Long. Okay, we'll find out why that is in a little bit. But first, let's start off with just a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Texas. I'm from Central Texas, Cali, if you know where that's at. Not too
Clean.
far away
Okay.
from San Antonio. Yeah.
And what is your native language?
English.
English. Inglés. Did you grow up speaking any other languages in your home?
My dad is fluent in Arabic, but he learned. He went to Jordan to learn. So for most of my life, he he did speak some words in Arabic, and I would hear him like doing like recitation in the morning. Like he would practice his speaking by reading out loud. So like at 6 in the morning, bro, I would get waking up to him speaking Arabic in the living room. So that was just like normal. It's just what he did every morning. So
Wow, that's pretty cool. So, would you say you learned a decent amount from him when it comes to Arabic, or you just didn't really touch that at all?
I would say I learned. I still know like the alphabet. I can read and write it. I know a decent amount of numbers, like basic, like 1 through 10. And then so I
Yeah.
went to college, and I actually was going to be an Arabic major. And so I took Arabic for a year there too. But I left that school and went to a different school, and I changed majors, and then I became a psychology major. So
So, how'd you get started with learning Spanish then?
in the very beginning, or like when I really took it seriously, you want the very
The
very
very
beginning?
beginning, the whole story.
Okay. The very, very beginning was the first language I ever took in school. Was French in 6th grade, and I didn't like it at all.
Mhm.
I just didn't like it. And so you had the opportunity to switch languages or continue on with that. And I switched to Spanish. And so I actually took Spanish in middle school. Sometimes I forget to tell people that, but I took Spanish for 1 year in middle school. But I didn't learn that much because it was like the most basic stuff ever. And then I took Spanish in high school. I went up to Spanish 3. So, and I dropped out of Spanish 3 because it was too hard. It was like a history class basically in Spanish. And I was like, bro, I can't do this. Like, it's just too much. So that's where it started at. That's where I got my base from because
Your
I
base.
was a good student in Spanish class. So in Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, when it was just vocabulary, like, I'll pay attention, and I had the numbers and um, the alphabet and the basic vocabulary down. So I thought I knew a lot of Spanish back then until I actually tried to talk to people.
Okay. And then outside of your classes, were you doing any, extra learning? Like talking
No, because
to Spanish
nah,
speakers and things like that?
no, at that time, no, I wasn't because I didn't. For one, I wasn't really committed to it. I thought I could just learn it through class. I was like, yeah, that'd be cool to be fluent in Spanish off of high school Spanish. And so I was only going to class, doing my homework, and I just thought when I got done with it that I would just be able to just flow in Spanish like with no problems. But clearly, it doesn't work like that. So
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish. I wish. High school Spanish was enough. I wish.
yeah, I wish.
Okay, and then after high school, how did the evolution of your Spanish learning journey look?
Man, it's just something that I felt like it was always calling me, especially like being in Texas. And then I went to college in New York, so I was cool with some Dominicans. And when they would speak Spanish, I'd be like, man, like, I wish I knew what they were saying. And so at various times, I'll be like, you know what? I'm really going to learn this, man. Like, I'm really going to go home and get on my Duolingo or whatever it was, and I'm going to take it serious. And there was like 3 or 4 times that I made an effort into trying harder on apps, but I still wasn't practicing in real life, which is the biggest problem. So, That
How would
is
you describe real life in real life?
having conversations.
Having conversations. Okay.
Like I literally, I was too insecure and scared to just like if I heard someone speaking Spanish to try. I would eavesdrop
Okay.
on conversations all the time. I'd be like, "Ooh, baño, I know that word," but like I would never say anything. No, you know.
So why did you have this fear then?
Uh, that's tough. I think not exactly a perfectionist, but I take pride in the stuff that I do, right? And so it was just at the time I wasn't accepting that when you start something new, you're not gonna be good at it. Like it's just impossible. Like there's steps to becoming good at something, and so until I accepted that, I struggled with making conversation because I didn't want to sound dumb or I didn't want the people to say, "It's not for you. You should just stick to English or something." So as long as I wasn't doing it, I could tell
Uh,
myself, well, yeah, if I really wanted to, I could speak better or I could blah, 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 you know?
and then from high school and until this point, how long was that?
From high school to right now,
Until when you started to start getting serious about learning Spanish.
um, I would say, I mean, I graduated high school in 2010. And when I finally decided to actually start having conversations, it was 2020. So that's how long it
2020.
was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I ask because yeah, I know a lot of people have a decent amount of gap, or they have a big gap in between when they were learning Spanish in school to when they actually decided to learn Spanish seriously. For me, it was a year and a half, so I I procrastinated a lot as well,
Yeah, I quit multiple times. Like I said, there was like three or four
multiple
attempts
times. Attempts, okay,
in that 10 year gap. I mean, like these are just random years, but let's just say like 2012. I was like, man, I'm gonna go hard on this Duolingo, and I would do my 365-day streak or whatever, and I'll just be like, I hear someone talking, and I'll be like, dang, I didn't understand that, and I'll just kind of quit. I'll be like, yeah, this language stuff isn't for me, bro. And then
okay,
something would spark me to do it again. I'll watch a TV show or something. I'll be like, ah, man, I wish I knew what they were saying. I'm gonna get serious, and I'll get on a different app because I'll be like, oh, Duolingo's not working. So I downloaded this app, Fluencia. I use that. I use a different app. There's a guy on YouTube, Speak Spanish Faster, Rocky. I
yeah,
downloaded his content. I downloaded a lot of stuff, man. I downloaded a lot of stuff. And at the end of everything, I would know more, but I was still kind of in the same place because I refused to have conversations with people.
okay. And you also said that Duolingo, or you thought that Duolingo didn't work. So what did that exactly mean to you?
I I think it didn't work for what I wanted. What I wanted was to have conversations with people. It sounds dumb now, but I wanted to have
You want to have
conversations with people.
conversations?
Yeah, and if all you do is read or write, like that doesn't make you better at having conversations. It doesn't make you better at hearing how natives talk and stuff like that. So there definitely needs to
Hmm.
be input from native speakers, and if you want to get better at speaking, you have to also speak. You know, throughout those 10 years, man, I probably downloaded 10 different things, bro. All kinds of different things. Because the advertisements would get me. They'll say, "This is the best thing. This is 120% better than Duolingo." I'm like, "Oh, this is what I need right here." And I would buy it or whatever. If it was free, I would download it. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I would use a lot of different stuff, man. And like I said, is I still wasn't accepting that I needed to go speak. And I don't. Sometimes it
Hmm.
wasn't exactly fear. I just thought I could do it without speaking. I'm like introverted, and I'm like, man, I don't want to walk up to
Okay.
random people and talk to them. Like, so I was just thinking, if I go hard enough, I can do this without talking to a bunch of random people. But like I said,
Mm.
that was not the case. Not for me, anyways.
So, how did you eventually stick with learning Spanish with your final attempt? Like, I guess what made you want to actually get serious and continue to learn? Because the previous 10 years, you're kind of going back and forth, but this time you're like, all right. I'm going to stick with it?
Well, it was two separate events, but they kind of merged together. So the catalyst was that for anyone that doesn't know, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and I was a personal trainer. And so one of my clients was from Oaxaca, Mexico, and she couldn't speak any English, like not a single
Wow.
word. I don't even know how she signed up for training, bro. It was crazy. But I was like, oh, like I kind of in my head, I was like, oh, perfect. I can like practice my Spanish, and so like, uh, like the one thing that's cool about Spanish speakers is like they're usually pretty warm and encouraging when you're trying to speak Spanish. So like when I would count the reps, I would count in Spanish, but that was like the only thing I could do. Uh, and so like when I had to like if I wanted her to do something, I'll say like, okay, uh, I just wouldn't say anything. I would just do the motion. And she would look and she would go, oh, las sentadillas. And I'd be like, oh, las sentadillas? Okay, cool. And so what I noticed
Mhm.
was the next session when I'll come back, I'll be like las sentadillas. But I didn't even have to think about it. I'll be like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
like, yo. I didn't like use a vocabulary like flashcard or nothing. It was just because I learned it
Mhm.
in context, it just came to me like super smooth. So then I kind of got like a fire lit in me because then I would just ask her like, ¿Cómo se dice eso? ¿Cómo se dice eso? And she would tell me, los flexiones or whatever, like los jalones, like all kinds of exercises, and I would just remember them. And so then from there, I just would, build the conversation out. I would like say like at the time I didn't know how to say we're going to do this or let's do this. So I would say like, ¿Cómo se dice las
Yeah.
sentadillas? Like me and you, and she'll be like, "Oh, vamos a hacer." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and then I would have that phrase in my head, and then I just, yeah, little by little, I just collected phrases off of her, and we actually started having like mini conversations, and then people will walk by, they'll be like, "Bro, you could speak Spanish," and I'll be like, "Maybe I can. I don't know. Like, I don't know." so, and so that was the
Wow.
thing that made me think like, okay, like I think I can learn. I just gotta speak. I gotta speak to people, learn the stuff in context, learn their expressions or whatever. And I had a friend here in Colombia that I knew from weightlifting, and so the lockdown happened, so I didn't have that client anymore, Valeria, the one from Oaxaca. And so I
Mhm.
asked him, I said, "Hey, bro, like, can I pay you and you just talk to me on Skype?" And he was like, "Yeah, because the government's not giving us anything. That would be perfect." And so we just started talking on Skype. Like, first conversation, I really couldn't say anything. And by the time we got out of lockdown, it wasn't perfect, but we're having full conversations about intangible things. It didn't have to be like something that was right in front of me. So
Yeah.
just got a lot better.
That's pretty amazing that you were learning a lot of, gym vocabulary, because that's a lot of vocabulary that I really want right now, but I don't have. Especially when it comes to, giving instructions to someone. That's like a really good skill to have, I think, in Spanish.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the thing was, it was a little confusing at first because I was training her, her husband, and his brother. And so when I would ask how to say something, a lot of times she would tell me as if I was telling a group. So in my head, I thought that was like a singular command.
I see.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So like in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, I say agan for blah blah blah, and then I might say that to one person, and they're like, oh, you mean us? Like, and I'm like, what? Like she told me this, but it was just, yeah, I just needed more experience. So, but
And how else were you learning Spanish during this time?
so after Valeria, once I really started thinking like, oh yeah, I can do this, and then
Mhm.
once the lockdown happened and I started having the Skype conversations with Will, that's when I really was like, all right, I'm gonna start taking everything I consume and like trying to spit it back out somewhere or even to myself. So I started listening to music. I started watching TV series, TV shows. I started reading like baby books, not like the books I read now, but like literally children's books. I would go on Amazon and I would buy like the most baby book ever. Like I can't think of the books, but something like you know, like the Three Little Pigs, like the
Yeah.
most basic stuff you can find. Yeah, that a kid would read. And so I'm like, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So it'd probably be good to read something like that.
TV shows and music. And what did you find the most challenging about learning Spanish?
That's a tough one. I think the most challenging thing, even to this day, is just that Spanish is a lot more flexible than English. I feel like you can
More
say
flexible.
things, yeah, you can say things with less words, and like time in Spanish is not the same as time in English. You know, like
Yeah.
that's something that's really tough for English or Spanish learners. Like understanding that if someone says boy, it doesn't mean like for us the present is only exactly right now. If I'm doing something, it's right now. If I'm gonna do something, you know, it's a different time period. But in Spanish, like the present is like here, like it's a little bit in front of you and a little bit behind you. So that was a little bit tough for me. Just like uh, if someone said like "te llamo," I'm thinking, oh, they're calling me right now. Like I don't see the call, bro. Because sometimes Will would say, "Okay, te llamo," and I'm like, no, I don't see it. And he's like, what are you talking about, bro? I said, I'll call you, and I'm like, what? Like, how does that make sense, bro? Like, that's the
Yeah.
future. That's not right now. But it's just different, you know. It's just different. You just gotta accept it.
That's funny.
Yeah. But I
And
would say
which
that's probably the time thing.
time?
Yeah, and probably all across the board. Just sometimes the past tense, I'm like, should I be using like this time, this past tense or this past tense? But you know, the more you talk, the more you don't even think about it. You just know like this is what I should be using. So
And which language skill do you think is the most difficult to develop? So out of reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
oh, speaking 100%. I mean, even if you look
Really?
at yeah, even if you look at like the development of a child, like us in our own language, you know, the first thing we do is listen. That's kind of the easiest. That's why a lot of people think that they can speak Spanish. They're like, yeah, I know quite a
Yeah.
bit of Spanish. They
I
understand
know.
a
I
lot.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, I can understand. It's just hard for me to speak. And
Hmm.
so it is. It's a lot easier to listen and piece together stuff than it is to form it yourself. And then the same thing with you know with writing, with reading. I think is super easy because you get to see it in front of you and you can look back and forward if you want to. Uh, Writing, you get time, so it's not the same pressure as speaking in a conversation. So those
Hmm.
three things, I think they're easier than speaking for sure. Speaking is the hardest. It's the last thing people do when they're learning usually, and it takes a really long time to get good at. You know, so it's tough.
How long did it take for you to get good at speaking Spanish, would you say?
She, I mean, I guess that depends on that depends on if you think I speak good now. But I think it took me. I'll say, how about I say to get comfortable speaking, not necessarily good. I think I
Yeah.
got comfortable speaking about a year and a half into me taking it seriously. So from
Okay.
I think I started with Will in August of 2020. So that's like usually when I say like that's when my journey really started. And I
Hmm.
think a year and a half past then was when I was like, wow, like I can handle myself in Spanish because there was one time my car broke down at the gym on a Sunday. All the auto shops and everything were closed, and my good friend who just died recently, rest in peace. He was like, "Yo, I can get you a mechanic, but he don't speak English though." And I was like, all right, whatever, bro. Like, I need someone to come fix my car, like, right now. And so he came. He was from Guatemala, and he, like, spoke with El Voceo and everything. He talked real fast, and, like, it was rough, but I handled it. You know, we got it done. He fixed my car, and I went home. And I'm like, dang, I just had, like, a full combo in Spanish with someone that couldn't even speak English. Like, that was crazy. fix my car. He asked me for information, and I was able to give it to him. And so I think that after that, I was like, man, like I think I think I'm doing all right. You know, I had combos before then. I had full combos before that, but I think a lot of them were bilingual, and so I could
Okay.
fall back on Spanglish if I needed to, and then I really knew them, so I didn't know how comfortable I was speaking with someone that didn't speak English that I didn't know. I was like, will I be understood? Will I understand them? What do I do if I don't understand them? Stuff like that. So, like I said, after that,
Yeah.
I was like, I think I'm gonna be alright.
So how are you developing your speaking skills and like I say after those Skype lessons that you were having with your friend, then also after those training lessons or after the training that you were doing?
Man, I was getting a little bit more brave every day. So there was a little tienda Latina, that's what it was called, like right outside my house. I would go buy stuff from there. I would speak Spanish to them. Sometimes they would speak back to me in English, and I'll feel kind of discouraged. But I was like, whatever. Like I still went and practice my Spanish. Like that's all I can do, you know. And then if I heard people speak Spanish in the sauna or something like that, I would say something and spark up a convo or something like that. But mainly, yeah, I just spoke. Like I've never been a grammar guy. Like I do work on my
Okay.
grammar, but I don't do like grammar lessons. I just get so that Will is a sports journalist here. He's super educated and he knows the ins and outs of grammar. So I have him and another person that I will basically rely on for corrections. So if I have doubts about something, then I go to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep my I guess my circle of corrections small, just because you learn that a lot of people are fluent, but that doesn't mean that they're like grammatically correct all the time. Just like English speakers, you know how to speak, but they could tell you some really wrong stuff, bro. So I stopped taking advice from random people. Like I'm like, if I
Okay.
didn't ask you for help, I don't want your help. I just want to speak. And like, I think when I was focusing on like trying to speak exactly correct all the time, it hindered me because I was like scared to say stuff or I think about it too much. Now I just speak. If I said something wrong and somebody tells me, I'll be like, okay, cool. And then I'll ask Will. I'll be like, hey, is this correct or is this correct? Because he's taught me a lot of stuff. I'll be like, yeah, I would have never known that if you didn't tell me.
And were you working or were you learning a specific accent or dialect in Spanish?
No, I never have. There are accents that people tell me I have, but it's never been something that I focused on. It just so happened that I was only speaking to a certain group of people, and their accent just rubbed off on me. So,
And have you ever traveled to a Spanish speaking country?
yeah, well, I guess Puerto Rico is really the United States, but people consider it going off the mainland and going to a different country. So,
Yeah.
I go there. I go there often. I live in Colombia now, so.
Wow.
But besides that, no, actually, I went to Spain when I was really young, but obviously I couldn't speak Spanish. Like I just lived in Germany, so we would travel all across Europe. So I've been to Spain, been to Puerto Rico. I live in Colombia, but I've never been outside of Colombia and South America.
And during your travels, let's say to Puerto Rico, and I guess before you came to Colombia or moved to Colombia, did those experiences help you learn Spanish? Like being there, being surrounded by the culture and everything?
Oh yeah, 100%, man. The first time, so I went to Puerto Rico like a year into that serious Spanish journey, right? Because
Okay.
I got married almost 2 years ago. So our honeymoon we went to Puerto Rico, and so that was like a little bit after a year of me taking it seriously. And I was getting to a place where I was feeling like I knew a lot more, But when I went there, I was like, what are they saying, bro? Like, I couldn't, like, even, yeah, my wife, like, her first language is Spanish, and we'll be out there, and people say stuff to us, and we'll look at each other, and I was like, I don't know what he says. She'd be like, you don't know? I don't know. And so, yeah, I learned a lot of stuff that first trip, and every time I experience something like that, it kind of, like, lights me back up. I'm like, oh, man, I need to go harder. Like, I need to go watch some Puerto Rican podcasts and stuff, and so uh, and then we went back, and it was better after we went back because enough time had passed, and I had spoke to enough Puerto Ricans and stuff like that. But yeah, I learned so much just being in places like Puerto Rico and here. All the signage, all the signs and stuff are in Spanish, so you learn a lot from that. Um, just, just like daily expressions and just all kinds of stuff. Listening to the radio in Spanish and hearing the advertisements, like you just hear, you see it, and you know what it means, but you're like, I would have never been able to come up with that in my mind by
Yeah.
myself. So then you kind of drop it in your toolbox, like, oh, the next time I want to say that, I'm gonna use that phrase right there.
Hmm. All right. So yeah, let's touch on your experience living in Colombia. How has that been?
Some days it's rough, but it's cool, man. It's a very nice city. I live in Cali, Colombia, and if you listen
Cali.
to the internet, you would think this was like Iraq or something, bro. You would think it's the most
Yeah.
dangerous place in the world, but I've experienced nothing but hospitality, good people, good vibes, dancing. This is the salsa capital of the world. Everyone loves to dance here. I haven't seen any crimes. I'm not saying they haven't happened, but in the places where I
Hmm.
would be at, they're not happening. If you go to a bad neighborhood, that's on you.
Yeah. Have
But
you
yeah,
experienced?
oh, go ahead.
Oh my, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of Spanish. No one here speaks English, so it gets
Hmm.
overwhelming sometimes. But it's like whatever, it's cool.
Wow. Do you think that you would have ever moved to Colombia if you didn't, get serious about learning Spanish? Like, do you think,
Oh,
that was
definitely
like the
not.
reason? Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, that was um, even so. So the first time when we went to Puerto Rico, we were actually gonna go to Colombia, but my passport got messed up. The government they messed up some paperwork, and my passport got lost for like 7 months.
Wow.
So we didn't go. And uh, whenever I would talk to Will, I would be like, when I went to Puerto Rico, I realized everyone there was bilingual. So if they got too frustrated, they would just talk to you in English. And I would kind of tell Will about that and stuff, and he'll be like, "Well, no one speaks English here, so you ain't gonna be able to do that." And I'm like, "Nobody?" Like, I'm like, not
Nobody.
even like, yeah, I'm like, not
Okay,
even like
so
the
some people.
business. Yeah, right. I'm like, not even like the businesses and stuff. And he's like, no. He's like, there's tourists
Wow.
that come, but it's not a tourist place. It's not Medellin. It's not Bogota. Like they don't expect people here to come and speak English. So
Okay.
no one. Yeah, it's not a thing. And so when he started telling me that, I was like, yeah, well, I'm glad I didn't come there then. That's another thing
Hmm.
too. I'm like, I need to go a little bit harder so I can feel more comfortable whenever I do go there to visit. I was thinking of visiting, but I ended up just coming. I live here, so. But yeah, no, I would not have done that. 100% no.
And what do you think about Colombian Spanish so far?
Man, you know what? I learned Spanish from a Colombian, so none of it is too weird to me.
Not too
But
weird. Okay.
yeah, but I think me and you might have talked about this before, but every country has a wide variety of accent. So people say Colombian Spanish, but it's like, bro, the coastal Spanish versus Medellin, the Paisa accent versus the Cali accent. Man, it's almost like speaking three different Spanishes. Like they're not even the accents are nowhere near each other. The way that they talk, because a lot of people I don't want anyone to comment and be like, I'm from Medellin and we don't say that. But a lot of people more up there, Bogota, and those areas, a lot of them might talk with usted. Like a lot of them, like even between like family and stuff like that. Whereas like here, it's el voceo. Like everyone uses vos. Um,
Hmm.
and in the coast is just different. They just talk really fast. They use L's instead of R's a lot of time, just like Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Caribbean, Spanish. And so yeah, it's real different. But here, like I said, El Voceo is that's something that's definitely weird to get used to. And it almost feels like I don't know if you've experienced this before. Maybe when you went to the Dominican Republic, but when you talk like them, it feels like you're an imposter. I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't be using El Voceo. Like
Yeah, I've
I'm
heard
not
that
really
before.
from
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
But but no one cares. They don't even blink if you do that. They're like, whatever. That's how we talk.
So is that something recently that you have felt?
The imposter syndrome type thing.
Or is that something that just popped up recently as you've been in Colombia?
I think I felt it more when I wasn't here. Now that I'm here, um, like I said, everyone talks like that, so no one's gonna be like, "Why are you talking like that?" They're just like, "Oh, cool, like you're catching on quick. You sound like us. That's dope. That's good." you know, like anytime I talk to someone, if we ever get to the point in the conversation where they ask me where I'm from, and I actually tell them, they'll be like, "Oh, well then how are you speaking Spanish like that?" And I'm like what? And they're like, "Man, like you using el voceo, like you use Colombian words. I didn't even know you weren't from here." And I'm like, "Well, that's good. That's what I'm going for, you know."
Yeah.
So, but they're like good for you. They're not like, "Oh, you're weird for trying to act like us," you know. They're like,
That's
even the
good.
last guy, he told me, he said he knew a guy that's a business owner here from America, and he said he's been here for 10 years, and he still sounds like he just got here like 2 months ago. He's not really trying to
Wow.
pick it up, and I'm like, I don't even know how he's surviving like that, but nah, that's not what I want to do. So yeah, like I said, a little bit of before, because like I said, Will is from here, and so like once me and him got comfortable on Skype, he would like uh, basically start slipping, right? Because at first he talked to me with "tú," but then you know he would say, I'm trying to think of something he might say. He might say like "¿Qué me decís?" And I'm like "Decís?" And
Okay,
he'd be like
disease.
"Dices, dices." Yeah, he'd be like "Dices." And I'm like, And, sometimes he'll say "Querés," "Querás," and I'm like, "Why are you talking like that, bro?" And he'll be like, "That's how we talk here." Like it's hard for me to not talk like that. And so eventually he just flipped over. Like once we got super cool, he was like, "Bro, I'm just gonna talk to you like this." And I'm like, all right, cool. And he would tell me I could do it, but like I said, I'm just in America. Nobody talks like that, so I'm like, this joint just feels weird. Like it's weird. So I would do it when I was talking to him, but I felt weird. But like I said, when I got here, I felt less weird about it because everyone talks like that. So
What do you say is the hardest part about learning Colombian Spanish?
um, that's a tough one. I think they they talk really here specifically. Like I said, someone that's watching this is gonna be like, "We don't talk like that much," whatever. Here specifically, they talk really dragged out, and they don't pronounce s's, and not just like eating
Oh,
the
really?
s's. Yeah, they don't say like beginning s's. I think I told you this before. Sometimes they say no en your, no en yora. Um, and so stuff like that. Sometimes they don't say s's sometimes. So like, and so it's a little weird sometimes, a little weird. But I would say, yeah, just getting used to a different sound.
I'm still struggling a lot with the Dominican Spanish. So I definitely like to get your perspective on that. It's still very challenging for me to understand Dominicans, even after listening to the content from there, talking to Dominicans for the past few years. So it's like still trying to figure that aspect out. It's been very challenging.
It's just an experience and time thing. because like I said, even like here, there's sometimes like actually yesterday, bro, I was in an Uber, and it's probably the first time like pretty much instantly in Uber was just like, yeah, you're not from here, because bro, he asked me something, and I was like, ¿Cómo? And like he just no, wait, won't. I'm like, ¿Cómo? And he just like, bro, he was talking so fast. He's the fastest person I've ever talked to, bro.
Yeah.
And then he said it really slow after that, as if like if he was talking to someone that didn't speak Spanish, and I still barely understood it.
Wow.
And then I was like, he was just flowing. But after I kind of like got his speech pattern down, I could understand him better. But it was that was rough, bro. I was like, man, am I just tired or like, nah? This dude was talking fast, bro. Like he wasn't pronouncing anything, bro. It was like he had time. I'm like, oh. And I was just like, what?
That's funny.
But yeah, with time and like I said, experience, there's certain things that I don't know how to explain this, but in certain situations, someone might only say something. And so because they're used to saying it then all the time, and people are used to hearing it all the time, they don't even pronounce most of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you're not used to it. So you're like, man, what did they say? Or like, I didn't catch that. But they've probably been in that situation 1,000 times. So they're like, what else would I have said just now?
That's a very interesting point. And from their perspective, it's like, I'm not saying anything weird. Like, how come you can't understand me? So,
Yeah, exactly. At the supermarket here, the one by my house anyway. So here in Cali, instead of saying bolsa, they say chuspa. And
chusta.
so, yeah,
Mm,
they say that for bags, like even like a purse or something like that, a chuspa.
okay.
And so the first time I went to the supermarket, bro, I was almost sweating, bro, because I'm like, I don't know what she's saying, bro. But, she was ringing out my stuff and she was like, ¿Quieres chupa? And I was just like, ¿Cómo? Oh, ¿Quieres chupa? What? Like, and I was just like, I'm like, and of course she wasn't saying chuspa, she's like, chuspa. I'm like,
Oh, it's
chupa?
okay. She cut out the S too. Chupa.
Yeah. And I'm like, ¿Quieres chupa? Chupa. I'm like, I don't know. And then she was like, la bolsita? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, la bolsita, sure. And then I was like, oh, chuspa. Like, it was already too late, bro. I was walking out of the supermarket. I'm like,
Oh, once you
but
realize what she said.
yeah, it didn't register because that was my first time at the supermarket here. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting to hear it. I just wasn't ready, bro. I just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, someone else, they probably done that 2,000 times, 5,000 times in their life. She probably wouldn't even have to say it. They're expecting her to say, like, do you want a bag or not?
Yeah.
So
That makes
it's
sense.
just normal.
Okay. And do you think since you've been in Colombia that your accent has been changing?
Um, yes and no. I think just because I'm using El Vocero a lot more, it's almost impossible to not sound like you're here if you talk like that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because like obviously like they do in Argentina and a couple other places too, but it would be hard to sound Mexican or Puerto Rican if you say like "que quieres," there's just no way. Like que decís? Like you can't really sound like you're from
Yeah.
there talking like that. But if I'm talking with Tu, I think my accent still probably sounds like relatively the same. But words that I've learned here or phrases that I've learned here, they probably sound Colombian because I learned it from someone here. And so that's the
Yeah.
only way I really know how to say it. But if it was already in my vocabulary, it probably sounds more Puerto Rican than Colombian, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And what does your study schedule look like right now?
Bro, I think one of the things that makes my life easy and makes it easy for me to do Spanish every day is that I don't have a study schedule and I don't study. I consume content that I like,
Yep.
but I don't consider it studying. I don't put a time limit on it. I don't have like a minimum, maximum time. Like I genuinely just, for instance, like boxing is gonna come on tonight, right? And I'm gonna watch it. Like I either watch it on my TV in Spanish or I have like a Spanish stream. So it's not like I'm like, I'm gonna sit down and find a podcast to like work on my comprehension. I'm like, I
Yeah.
want to watch the fights, and so I'm watching something that I like, and I'm getting the vocabulary from it. But it's not even exhausting because it's something that I
Mm-hmm.
like. You know what I mean? And so I've always just done that. I play songs that I like. I'm not gonna listen to songs that I don't like just to get some vocabulary from it or something like that. So I don't do
Okay.
any yeah, I don't do any hard studying. I do have books now that I read that are a little more advanced, but it's still stuff that I like, and it's stuff that even I think I told you about the little higher level grammar book that I bought.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a grammar book, but it's about writing, reading, and speaking better, which is something I'm interested in. It's not necessarily grammar work. There's no exercises to do. It's just learning about the structure of the language and how it's supposed to be, which I like. I like learning about languages, even if I have no plans to speak them.
Yeah.
I just like seeing like, oh, Japanese does their subject, verb, object in a different format. I like that. I wonder why it started like that. One time I learned randomly about some tribe, maybe in the Amazon, I think, that had no past tense or future in their language. They could only say stuff in the present. And it made sense once I read about it because it's like the only thing that's important to them is where they're going and what they're eating. Like it's not,
Mm-hmm.
there's no point in like thinking about like what happened and thinking about what's gonna happen in 2 months. It's like, bro, we need to go find some food because I'm hungry. And that's their whole life. And so once you learn like the cultural reasonings for why a language is the way it is, like a lot of stuff makes more sense. Even like in English, like goodbye came from God be with you, or God be with you, and it got changed into goodbye. And
I
when I
didn't know
learned
that.
that, yeah, well,
I didn't know
check it out.
that.
It's so funny. When I learned that, I was like, I wonder is it like that in other languages? And check this out. I learned it and I looked and I was like, oh, adios is adios. And I told Will that,
Okay.
and he was like, what are you talking about? Adios means bye. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And this was at a time when I didn't have the Spanish to explain what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, but like, it's like telling you to
Makes
go
sense.
like with God, like adios, like, like
Mm-hmm.
saying like God be with you. And I'm like, oh man, that's cool that like all these languages are like basically the same, like like where it came from and stuff like that. He had no idea what I was talking about, bro.
Thanks. Goodbye, man. I don't know. I don't know what else you're trying to talk about.
But for real, he was like, yeah, adios means bye. And I was like, all right, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's mad interesting because I know in RD, in the Dominican Republic, a lot of times, when you're, saying goodbye to someone, you'll say "Que te vayas con Dios," which is I don't know how to translate that to Spanish, but it's just like something like you going with God, that kind of thing.
Right,
Que te vaya con
right.
Dios.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I love learning stuff about that. I love learning about linguistics, period, man. Like, I don't
Linguistics,
really
yeah.
have an interest in learning more languages. I don't think, but
Really? Not even
I do
one?
love, maybe Portuguese, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe
I don't know.
Portuguese.
I've been thinking about it, but I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm really connection based. Like I said, I ended up learning Spanish because I had a client and I really wanted to connect with her and be able to do my job. And I had Will, who was my friend here, and I also wanted to be able to speak to him, and I couldn't. And
Yeah.
so that was a real driving force for me. I'm probably not going to learn a language just to learn it. Now, if I meet someone from Brazil and they don't speak English or Spanish, I might be like, you know what? I'm going to learn Portuguese so I can speak with them.
Mhm.
But
That makes sense.
But yeah, I love linguistics, man. I love learning stuff about Spanish that I might not use. I learned there's a place in Ecuador, so I have to backtrack a little bit. The 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 double L sound
Mm-hmm.
used to be like a LH sound, like the same as Portuguese. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I'm probably not gonna be able to think of any examples right now, but there's a town in Ecuador where they've retained it. So they said like before like 1950, a lot of the world still said the LH sound. So can you think of a word that has like two L's in the middle of it?
Amarillo. Is that in the middle?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So before 1950, I'm just making that number up. It might be 1920 or something like that. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the world would have said amarillo, amarillo.
Like,
Like yeah, like the Portuguese LH, or kind of like instead of like fajar, they might say like falar or something like that. Something weird like that. Whatever. The point is, there's a town where they still talk like that. And I watched a podcast where a lady was on there saying, it. I'm like, man, this is weird. Like, and I was just like reading about the history of how that sound kind of just like phased out, kind of the same as like the double L and the Y. Those are basically the same sound everywhere now, but they didn't used to be though, which is, you know, why well, there's two different letters that make the same sound. Same thing with S and Z. Obviously, in Spain Spanish, they still kind of make a distinction, but
mm-hmm.
there's no distinction in Latin America. So I just like reading about that stuff and how it happened, what it used to be. It's pretty cool.
So, where did this desire come from? Would you say to start learning about linguistics, or did you always have this? Since you're young, or I would say since you were like a little kid.
Probably since I was a little kid. I was, man, like, people probably don't think it because I'm like a weightlifting dude, but I'm a super nerd, bro. Like, I, I got a letter from George Bush when I was a little kid because uh, I took like the pre SAT and I got like a perfect score on it. I took the actual SAT when I was in sixth grade, and that was back when. So
Oh,
this is how old I am. That's back when it was like 1600, and I got like a 15 something. Like it was not a perfect score, but it was high, and I was in sixth grade, and so I actually could use that score to go to college. Like once I was 18, but the SAT changed to 2400 right before I went to college, so I had to retake it just because of that. But yeah, I've always been like a super nerd. I read the first Harry Potter book in a day when I was a kid, so I just like reading. I'm one of those people that's like, and this used to like really get on Will's nerves, but I'm one of those people that learns a new word or something. And I'm like, why? Like, why is it like that? Like, where does that come from? And he's like, I don't know. We just say
say
it. And
it.
I'm like, man, but that sounds like this word. Are they related? And he's like, they might be. I don't care. Like, I just used the word. And I was just like, dang, man, I need to go look this up real fast. I need to see if it's what I think in my head about it. You know. So
Mhm.
yeah, I've just always been like that.
Okay, very very cool. I want to go back to kind of what you were talking about beforehand. How you wouldn't just listen to, I think you said like to a song, just
Mhm.
to like learn about like vocab or whatnot, or take to learn about it. So is that the same thing across the board? For example, let's say you don't know any vocabulary in Spanish related to cars. Would you just start learning it right now just so you can know it, even though you don't necessarily need that vocabulary?
Bro, so that was one of the things that I was most proud about when I had to get my car stuff done. Because I don't know car stuff in English, bro. To this day,
I'm about to
I
say.
still don't. Yeah, I could tell you, rims, tires, steering wheel. I could tell you, oh, this. I can change the oil myself. But after that, bro, I couldn't tell you a thing. When people are like, oh, the alternator and this and that, I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't know where that's at in the car or anything.
Yeah,
So I was like, why would I learn that in Spanish? I don't talk about that stuff in English. I'm never going to talk about it in Spanish.
yeah.
And so when that guy came to fix my car, yeah, he would be like, "Oh, this part is messed up," and I'd be like, "I don't know what that is." And he'll be like, "Right here," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, thanks," but I'm like, "That doesn't mean."
Not gonna- uh,
But yeah, he would just be like, "Have you touched the blank?" And I'm like, "I don't think so. I don't know what it is." And like I'm sure at the time he was thinking like, "Oh, he just doesn't know the words in Spanish." But I was trying to tell him, I'm like, "Bro, I
you don't
just
know
don't
anything at
know."
all.
Yeah. So
uh,
I'm not gonna study it because I'm not a mechanic and I don't do stuff with cars, bro. Like when people are like, "Oh, what's your favorite car?" I'm like, "Bro, I know like two cars, bro. I couldn't tell you like the names of most cars. I don't know them, so I'm not gonna study in Spanish either."
so then, how would you describe hmm, your vocab acquisition style? Then it's just kind of whatever,
I
like you said,
just
kind of beforehand, like whatever you connect with, or
Yeah, I just live my life, man. The same way. I don't really have an example right now in English, but I watch stuff in English. I might watch like a lecture about something, and I'll hear a word, and I'm like, I never heard that word before. I don't think, but I just learned it from this guy saying that, and I'm like, I might use that word, later. Um, so that's just what I do. I learn by watching stuff, and a lot of stuff is connected too. For example, like the word that I learned for hanger, and like I said, obviously I learned from a Colombian. So if anyone's like, that's not how I say hanger, I don't care. But the word I learned for a hanger was gancho, right? And it's like a hook. And so the first time I ever heard gancho in boxing, I was like, oh, that makes sense because it's like a hook.
oh,
It's
hook.
like the
Oh,
same,
okay,
like
it's
the
the same.
same
That's good.
concept.
That's good.
Yeah,
It's not a completely
yeah.
different word.
Yeah. I'm like, man, that's weird, but I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, all right. So a lot of stuff, even if it doesn't stick the first time I hear it in another context. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like,
hmm
so that's what I do. I just consume stuff that I like and, you know, learn from it.
I learned a lot of vocabulary just by having conversations with Spanish speakers as well. Like,
Yeah.
not even looked it up in the dictionary, didn't, really just like, look at it into my notebook or anything like that. But have a conversation with someone, they said a new word, I'm like, ¿qué es eso? ¿Qué significa esa palabra? They explain it to me, and then I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then I remember it from that day on. Like, it's just, nowadays, it's that simple. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And to go with what you just said, the like literally that phrase, que significa eso? Like, I learned that by Will saying that to me because Will speaks a little bit of English, and so if
Okay.
I couldn't explain something, I would say it in English and hope that he could tell me it in Spanish, and you know he would get caught up on one word and be like, "Que significa eso?" And I'm like, I'm guessing that means what does that mean, And then I just had it from him saying it to me, you know what I mean? So I learned a lot of stuff, and I still do. I learn a lot of stuff, like you said, just talking to people. They say something, and like I said, you may have never heard it before, but you understand it from their tone and the context, and it just like
Yeah.
becomes a part of you after that. I don't know if every country does this, but here, when they want to say like, man, I don't even know how to explain this, but like if they're asking like why, they kind of say y eso, like oh, like does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like I went to the boxing gym this morning, and the dude was like, "You're here like later than usual. Like you're kind of late." And I was just like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Yeah, so like why? Like why are you so late? Like what happened? You know?" And so that's just like the first time I ever heard it, I knew what it meant in the context that I heard it. But it would be something that like if you read it or someone was like, "Oh, yeah, so means this," you would be
hmm
like, "Hmm." Then you'd be thinking like, "How do I use this?" And you might
And
use it
that,
wrong.
and that
Yeah,
what?
it's
What are
not
you
a good
referring to?
translation.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Nah, not a good translation. But like I said, when you hear it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
It's actually really interesting that you just brought that up, right? Because I met this one Colombian woman, and we were actually texting last night, and she literally said that same exact phrase or question. She asked that question. I had no idea what that meant. Like literally last night, I was like, "Yes." So like, what? I was like kind of confused. I didn't ask her like what it meant. I was like, I'm just gonna guess what this means. It is like send a response, and I was like, kind of correct. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
and that's the thing. Like, so that's the other problem. Like, a lot of people, like I said, they want to just read, they want to just text people or whatever. But
Hmm.
if you see ESO and they don't put a question mark, you're not even gonna hear the tone. So you're just gonna be like, "And that, like,
Yeah, just
and
read it.
that
Yeah,
what?"
exactly.
Yeah, but like I said, if you heard it in real life, if you heard someone say ESO, like immediately you would just know, you know what they're asking by them saying it in that tone and pointing or whatever. You'll just be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's weird. I never said that before, but I know what it means though." Like,
I'm not. I don't think I've heard. I don't know if I've heard that from other Spanish speakers before. Really,
yeah, there's a
I
lot of
think I need
stuff
to
here
ask.
that is like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that's like very Colombian and that sometimes I don't know it's very Colombian until I'm like talking to someone else and they're like, I never heard that before, you know? Just like even
Hmm.
like the way they order food here, like uh, you can order food however you want to, but it's super Colombian to say me regalas, like
Me
whatever me regalas.
regalas
Yeah, but
in.
if you,
Hmm.
what?
So in me regalas, like so they would say that instead of saying like me puede dar or something like that, or
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
But like I
okay,
said, Will taught me a good base of my Spanish even before I came here.
yeah,
So, when we would do like, what is it called? Like mock situations, I would learn his way of saying it. And I, I go to a restaurant and say that, and they're like, I'm not giving you this. Like, you got to pay for it. And like, cause,
yeah.
to them, regalar is like a gift. Like, no, I'm not giving you this food for free. But here,
That's
that's just
hilarious.
how you order food. Yeah, it's just not even. It's
Interesting.
not asking for it for free. It's just how you ask for food.
Wow. Are there any other Colombian phrases like that are very different from you would think I'd say standard Spanish?
I think there's probably a lot more than I can think of. Like I said, a lot of times I don't even think it's out of the ordinary until I say it to someone else. Oh, one is like you hear this like at least 100 times a day, bro. Bien pueda, just all the
Bien
time.
what?
Bien pueda.
Bien pueda. Okay, that's a new one
Yeah,
for me as well.
it's super Colombian, and the best way I can translate it is like kind of like go ahead or you're welcome. So if you walk into a restaurant and you're like, can we seat ourselves? Bien pueda. And it's just like, or yeah, sometimes like if I'm at the gym and I'm like, someone like we might be both using the same weights, and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out if they're finished with that. I'm like, can I take this? Bien pueda, bien pueda. Like, go ahead, like you're welcome to. But like I
Wow.
said, that's very, very Colombian. And they, like I said, they
Yeah.
say it all day, bro. Anywhere you go, any restaurant place, bien pueda, bien pueda. Like they're welcoming you in saying that. So
Wow.
yeah, it's different. It's different.
That's dope. And
Anything else is
to
like, huh?
oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't think I can think of anything else. Anything else I can think of right now, I think is somewhat common. They say a la orden a lot, even if
Okay, I've heard that
they're.
one before.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one's pretty common. I think they say it more than other countries, but they say it. Yeah, they say it a lot.
Yeah.
What else? I'll tell you if something else pops up. Right now, I can't think of anything else. But
And to remember all these, new words and phrases, do you ever write them down, or do you just, try to remember them during a
no,
conversation?
I never write anything down. I've
No,
never done.
never. Wow.
Nah, it's just not. It's not my thing. My thing is
Okay.
like I think about it in two ways. One, it's not common enough that I would see it again, so I don't need to remember it. Or
Okay.
two, common enough that I must see it 500 more times, so I don't need to write it down because eventually, like, I'm just be like, bro, I've heard this 100 times. I know what it means. Like, for example, bien pueda. Like, me and my wife were definitely like, why did they keep saying that? Like, the first day we pulled, I'm just like, I'm like, I don't know
Good
exactly what it means.
can. Good can.
Yeah. I'm like to be at she kept because she's half Mexican, half Guatemalan, but she was basically raised in Mexican culture. So
Okay.
everything here like is like super different to her.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas like for me, like I said, at least half of it because Will taught me Spanish. A lot of the words I'm like, oh, that means this. Um, so a lot of times she looks at me, she's like, "What does that mean?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like that was beyond me. I don't know what that means." And we just figure it out over time. You know what I mean? So, but outside of like actual words, there's a lot of we talked about this, but there's a lot of just cultural things. Like I said, like everyone here calls each other mijo, mija, joven,
Mhm.
señorita, señorito. Like they never like you're not gonna hear like senor a lot. Like it's not. Everyone's young. Like they literally at the restaurant across the street, she literally says mi niño to me. And I'm like, I'm not a little kid, bro. ¿Qué quieres, mi niño? I'm like,
Mm.
I'm a grown man, but
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of how they use Hoban in RD because you'll hear Hoban a lot as well. Like older person, they just say Hoban to someone who's
yeah,
younger than them, but
yeah,
there's not as far. I mean, I don't really know like what exactly like the age gap would be of when they would
yeah,
use it, but it sounds like they just use it for basically anyone who's younger than them. It sounds like.
yeah. See that to me, that's not like so weird. But like I said, here it's only weird because everyone says it. So like, I mean,
Mm.
like I said, I felt like an imposter at first, but now I walk up in the spot, I'm like, "You owe mija," even though she's like 70 years old. Like I call her mija. Like they don't think twice about it. It's just like that's what everyone does. So
Yeah. How long did has it taken you to get adjusted to Colombian culture? I mean, I guess you did just recently move there, so.
it's only been like 3 months, and I would say I'm still adjusting. A lot of stuff is just different. A lot of the words, like we just said, the words are different, or just the way they do things. Not necessarily like hygiene in a clean or bad sense, but just like what they consider acceptable, like touching other people's food.
Oh yeah,
That's
let's
kind
hear
of
about that. Let's hear about that.
if you're cool with people, man. Like there's less boundaries here than the United States. Like even this restaurant that I go to a lot, like more like a shop, not really a restaurant. But one time, actually, it was the last time I went with this guy, Dre from YouTube. I took him to the spot, and the dude touched his straw. He was like, "Let me stir it for you." He grabbed his straw, and I was just like, "I would not drink out of that straw after that."
uh,
But that's just I don't know. Stuff's just different here, bro. Like and like yeah, if I go out to eat with Will or something, he's like, "Is that good?" And he'll just grab it and be like, "Oh man, you ordered something really good." And I'm like, "Bro, I didn't say you could have none. I didn't say you could put your hands in my food, bro."
that's funny.
Yeah, so that like I said, if you're cool with people, cheek kisses, that's definitely a thing here.
G
Um,
kisses. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's different. I grew up with cheek kisses, so it's not so different, but where I lived at the last 5 to 10 years, like that wasn't a thing. So getting back into it's different. Uh, like I said, the culture is more, what's the word? I guess caring here. So the words are more, like people say mi amor. mi reina, mi rey. And like if you're not, if you don't know, you might think they're flirting with you or something, but they're not. Like
Mm,
it's not flirting. That's just how they talk. Like
I've heard it.
yeah, like yeah, you could be like with your wife, a girl that's serving you, still gonna walk up and say, "Hey, cómo has estado, mi rey?" You know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
They've had to get used to it if you've never been in that environment before.
Yeah.
Like, what did you just
But,
say?
yeah, Puerto Ricans are the same.
Puerto Ricans too.
Yeah, even between like it's more like a joke, I guess. But even between dudes, they'll say mi amor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, well, more like mi amor. But it's not so weird. It's kind of like, where are you from? You from Chicago? Detroit?
Minnesota.
Minnesota? Somewhere up there. Same
Yeah,
thing.
close enough. You're right there.
but,
Same area.
I remember, like, growing up in the South, uh, like, when I would go to my dad's side of the family stuff or like Thanksgiving and stuff, I had a barber in New Orleans who would say "darling" to dudes though, like not in
Yep.
like a not in that
Hmm.
kind of way, but like, "What can I do for you, darling?" Like, but that
Yeah,
was
I hear that
just
a
that's
lot.
just how he talked. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just different cultures, different things, So
So, did you learn a lot of Spanish from your wife?
no, we almost never talk in Spanish.
Really?
Yeah, everyone thinks that that's like anyone that finds out that my wife speaks Spanish, they're like, "Oh, that's why you sound like that. That's why blah blah blah." And I'm like, we literally never speak to each other in Spanish, like ever,
Wow.
unless we're having a three-way conversation. So like, if me and her and Will go out, because we're not gonna speak
Hmm.
English and leave him out, we speak Spanish to each other.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to her mom or her dad, and she's a part of the convo, we're speaking Spanish. But if we're just speaking to each other and the third person isn't a part of the conversation, we're gonna speak in English. Because I met her in English, our relationship has been in English. It's just a switch
Gotcha.
that's just hard to make. Like it doesn't matter that we can. We're just like why? Like we could find the words better in English. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
so.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting because at least just kind of from my perspective, or at least from from conversations that I've had with other language learners as well, I would assume that if you're someone who you're in a relationship with, your partner or whatnot, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, speaks a different language than your native language, then you would be speaking their target language, right? As language learners, like, oh, we automatically are going to do that, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, you know what, man? It's I think the other thing too is like, let me think of a way to say this in an educated way. So my wife's first language is Spanish, but she was born and raised in the United States. So it was like
Yeah.
Spanish in the house until you get to school. All of her education, like English is her primary language, Spanish was just her first language. So
Okay.
as I started learning, I started realizing like, hey, you kind of be saying a lot of stuff wrong. Like, you know, I'm not gonna correct her or anything, not like that. Like now, at the point that we're at now, like she knows how much I know, and like honestly, like sometimes she'll like be like, "Hey, can you like if she's like applying to a job in Spanish, and she'll be like, can you look over this and make sure I like spell this stuff right and stuff like that." But yeah, it's just I realized how much of a chore it would be for her to try to teach me because she knows how to speak, but she doesn't know like the reasoning behind anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes she doesn't know stuff at all. She's like, I don't know. I just would say it in English if I was you. I'm like, I don't want to say it.
That's
So
funny.
yeah. But I mean, as a learner, that stuff is exhausting. So I never wanted to like
Hmm.
bring her into it and get her exhausted by trying to teach me something. So I was like, I'd rather just pay someone to help me, and it's better that way.
What are your let's say yeah, what are some of your goals now? So some of your goals for Spanish, let's say for 2024, if you thought about those.
You know, uh, I keep it simple, man. I think one of the things that helped me in this whole journey was to stop. And this sounds weird because I'm like outside of Spanish, I'm like, yeah, you need to have big goals and you need to blah blah blah. But for me in this journey particularly, what has helped me is to just to commit to speaking every day and not think like I need to get here. I'm kind of at the moment I'm kind of done with that. I do have plans, but they're more like I have plans and those plans happen to be in Spanish. Like I do want to do like a university course and stuff like that, but I don't want it to be
Yep.
like I need to do this so that my Spanish can get here. I don't want it to be an end goal because I just want to enjoy that I can speak Spanish, that I could walk outside and have a conversation with someone right now. Like whenever I used to think of it as like, I need to get fluent. I need to get to this point where I don't make mistakes. I need to get here, here, here. It's like I couldn't even focus on the fact that I was having conversations with people because I'm like, all right, how do I say this next sentence without messing it up? Because if I mess up, this whole conversation will be a failure. But
Hmm.
now I'm just like, whatever, bro. Like, I'm just talking to people. I'm just making friends. I'm just having fun,
I like
and
that.
yeah, not making it such a big deal. And I continue to improve because I'm doing it every day. I'm learning new stuff. I thought it was important. I think it was important when I started to have goals. It kind of kept me on track. But I'm at a
Keep you
place
on
now
track.
where I'm at a place now where I just like I said, I just want to speak every day, and that's it.
Do you speak to yourself in
Hmm.
Spanish?
Sometimes, like if I'm doing something, well, I guess there's no specific reason, but I mean, I talk to myself in English too. I just talk to myself all the time. So sometimes when I'm having like that inner monologue, I'm like, would I know how to say this in Spanish? And I like try to do the same thing but in Spanish. But yeah, I talk to myself in both languages.
Okay. And do you usually think in Spanish as well throughout the day, or in English?
I guess it depends because there's certain things that I learned in Spanish that I had no experience with in English. So if I think about those things, then I think about them. I think about them in Spanish. But if it's something I've done like 1,000 times in English, I probably think about it in English. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I think.
And I'll go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I think. I don't know.
Oh, sí, y ¿qué iba a decir? Oh yeah, what would you say your level is at in Spanish? I don't know if you go by the like the what is it the CEFR levels or whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know any of that stuff. All I really know is like A1 is the beginning, C2 is like native like, and I never judge myself by a scale or even like the word fluent. I don't really like the word fluent. Um, what I tell people is that yes, I can speak Spanish, and yes, I can have conversations, and I can talk about anything I want to talk about. Whatever that means to you, that's what it means. What it means to me is that, you know. So I think
Hmm.
once you put a label on it, it gives you room to judge yourself more harshly, and it gives other people room to judge you. If I say, "Oh yeah, I'm C2, bro," someone could say, "Oh well, I listened to this and you messed this up. A C2 level person would never do that." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, you know. Or even if I judge myself too low, you know, they'll be like, "Oh, you're being fake humble. You have these conversations. You're clearly at least a C1 or something." So I just say, you know what, bro?
I feel you.
I can speak. Yeah, I can speak. I can have full conversations if I want to. I can speak in that language and never revert back to English. What level that is, I don't know. Don't matter to me. I'm not trying to be a professor. Not right now, anyways. I'm not trying to be a professor. I'm not trying to take a job that requires you to have a certain level. So it's not like I'm
Yeah.
deceiving anyone or anything like that. I'm just talking. You know, I don't classify my
Hmm.
English. I just say like
Right.
I'm just talking. I'm just doing it,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. To piggyback off what you just said, you would maybe want to be like a professor or like a Spanish teacher in the future.
It's possible. I've thought about, because I do like linguistics, I've thought about teaching. I thought about teaching English here. I thought about teaching people Spanish because I do like breaking things down and making them more simple. Like I'm a part of this group chat on WhatsApp for like people learning Spanish, and I enjoy telling them like, oh, this is like this, and if you just do this, it's a lot easier to remember. Blah blah blah. But I don't know. Something I have to think about.
Mhm.
Kind of different doing it on your own time when you feel like it versus being like a full time professor or something. Like, so I don't know. But I do like to teach. I like to teach. That's why I'm a trainer and a strength and conditioning coach. I like teaching people how to use their bodies. I like helping people with life. Even I use the physical stuff to have the conversations with them about life as well. So I do like teaching, but I don't know. I don't know about the Spanish teaching stuff.
Okay. Y antes de que hablemos en español, before we speak Spanish, can you share about your YouTube channel a little bit? Kind of, you have your YouTube channel and you talk about language learning on there. So how did that whole channel start?
Man, when I started that channel, it wasn't even about Spanish. Weirdly enough, it was gonna be a fitness channel, which it kind of still is. I do both, and lots of
Okay.
people throughout the years, because it's been like 2 years since I made it. They've been like, "Man, if you just stuck to fitness, this channel will be this. If you just stuck to Spanish, you have 10K subscribers." But I like just doing whatever I want to do, man. I like living my life. And I'm like, you know what? If people are into exercise and they're into Spanish, then they'll like this channel. If they're not, then they just won't like the channel, and that's fine with me. But my channel is just about self improvement. So
Self improvement.
I
Okay.
consider, the language learning is a part of self improvement. Being able to connect with more people, learning more about languages, learning more about yourself. Like I said, the physical stuff is self improvement. And then there's somewhere in between that's neither languages nor physical. Sometimes I post about books that I've read, life problems, all kinds of stuff. So my channel is definitely a mix of things, for sure.
Bueno, y ahora mismo cambiamos al español por un rato. Yo creo que dicen rato en Colombia, ¿verdad? Muchísimo.
Sí, a veces dicen ratico, pero así.
Ratico. Ah, ok.
Ujú.
Yo había oído unas veces en las series de Colombia que dicen ito hablar y ico y cosas así.
Sí,
Momentico,
ico,
por
sí,
ejemplo.
momentico,
Ok.
minutico, sí,
Y bueno, yo entiendo que vives ahora mismo en Cali, Colombia, ¿verdad?
sí, vivo en Cali, Colombia.
Ok, entonces, yo quiero saber si salsa es tu género de música favorito.
Mm, es una buena pregunta, pero no sé. Sí, me gusta la salsa, pero me gusta el reggaetón también.
Reggaetón. Ah, ok.
No, pero sí, me gusta un poco de todo, como la champeta. ¿Has escuchado de champeta o no?
Quizás de Shakira, pero no sabe. Bueno, no, yo no sé nada de champeta.
Ok, Shakira es de Barranquilla. Y sí, allá
Barranquilla.
Barranquilla y Cartagena y algunos lugares así hacen champeta. Sí.
Ok. Es un bar colombiano.
Ujú.
Ok.
Champeta, me gusta el vallenato. El vallenato es como la banda en México, pero es de Colombia.
Ok.
Vallenato, sí. Pero no, creo que mi favorita es reggaetón.
Reggaetón. Ok.
Ujú.
¿Y sabes cómo bailar los bailes de Colombia?
La salsa sí, pero la champeta y todo eso no.
No.
Es mucho como juego de pies,
Mm, ok.
ujú, como footwork.
Ok, entiendo. Y hay muchos idiomas nativos, o bueno, indígenas en Colombia.
Em, sí, de hecho, mi barbero habla dos idiomas, español y lo que sea. No sé cómo se llama el idioma, pero es un idioma que es nativo de Colombia.
Ok. ¿Y has escuchado mucho viviendo en Cali?
No, no es como México. Como en México hay mucha gente que habla un poco de todo, sí. Pero no, aquí no.
Ajá. No,
Lo he
no es así.
escuchado. No, sí.
Ok. ¿Y cuáles son unas de tus palabras y frases favoritas de Colombia?
Uf, ¿puedo decir groserías o no?
Sí, claro que sí.
Ok, jueputa. Jueputa. Sí. ¿Qué más? Jueputa.
Güey, ¿qué fue la primera palabra?
Es como hijo de puta, pero es
Ajá.
hijo de puta. A
Y,
veces, sí, a veces no se suena y jueputa.
ok. Interesante.
Sí, los taxistas y los conductores del Uber y todo eso. ¡Ay, hijo de puta! ¡Muévese, hijo de puta! Sí, eso es
Oh,
normal aquí. Todo el
es
mundo dice
normal.
hijo de puta. No,
Ok.
pero hijo de puta, mal parido. ¿Has escuchado de la palabra mal parido?
No, nunca.
Ok. Uf, es como. No, ¿cómo te explico? Mal parido es como bastard, casi, pero es
Mm,
decir mal parido, como naciste mal, como parir es la palabra es decir birth,
ajá.
entonces mal parido,
Parido. Ok.
mal
Interesante.
parido, ¿qué más? Carechimba, ¿sabe qué significa carechimba?
No, pero yo había escuchado de chimba una vez, pero
La
no conozco
chimba,
el
la chimba,
significado.
la chimba es la
Ah, la vaina.
entonces carechimba.
Ok.
Sí, entonces de carechimba, caremonda, monda es el pene, entonces caremonda. Ah, ¿qué más? Aquí le dicen a los niños como pelaos, pelao, pelada o
Pelado.
curicagao,
Ok.
curicagao. Y si es un bebé, a veces le dicen zumbambico,
Bambico.
zumbambico, sí,
Zumbabico.
zumbambico.
Ok. Qué chulo.
¿Qué más? No, ahora no sé, pero sí, me gustan las palabras soy puta, mal parido, sí.
Ok. Son muy distintas. De verdad. Y
Sí.
dígame, ¿qué te da comida de Colombia?
No sé, no, hay un montón de como platos colombianos aquí, pero ¿has escuchado de cazuela? Cazuela de mariscos, perdón.
No, no he escuchado.
Mm, es como gumbo. ¿Has probado
Ok.
gumbo en Luisiana o algo así?
Claro.
Sí, cazuela de mariscos. ¿Qué más? Bandeja paisa, como
Bandera.
todo bandeja.
Ok.
Sí, pero sí, es como arroz, como muchos tipos de carne, como salchicha, carne de res y todo. Pero es un plato muy grande. Sancocho,
Ah,
¿qué
¿tenéis
más?
sancocho también ahí?
Ujú.
Oh, wow, ok. También
Sí, sí,
se come en RD también. Ok.
sí. Y en Puerto Rico también, sí, sí,
Puerto
sí,
Rico,
sí.
ok, Puerto Rico también.
Sí, es un plato caribeño, creo.
Ok.
Sí, sancocho y ¿qué más? Hay una sopa que se come en RD también, pero no me acuerdo del nombre, del nombre.
¿Y sabes cómo preparar un plato colombiano? ¿Aún? ¿No?
No, no, no cocino, bro. No,
Entonces,
pero he visto que tú cocinas mucho.
un poquito, un poquito.
No, eso me gusta, bro. No, te admiro, bro, porque es un necesario, pero
Claro.
no, yo no cocino, bro.
Tienen negocios de, no sé cómo se dice, pero negocios de comida, mejor. Como Uber Eats o algo así, donde puedes pedir y te lleva la
Aquí,
comida. Ajá, ahí.
sí, se llama Rappi, como
Rappi.
Rappi, sí.
Ok,
Sí, si quieres comer algo, busca en tu teléfono Rappi y hay muchas elecciones como eh, todo.
perfecto. Entonces, muchas gracias por estar conmigo hoy. Thank you very much for having this amazing conversation with me and sharing just a little bit. I'm sure there's a lot more about your Spanish learning journey. It's been very nice to learn a little bit more about your experience and your challenges and also your triumphs as well.
Gracias por tenerme, hermano. It was a good conversation. I appreciate it, bro.
Sí, por nada, por nada. And can you also share, where, the audience can find you on social media?
If you want to see Spanish, then yeah, my YouTube. But I'll comment. I'll comment on the video whenever it's posted, just in case you don't remember. I'll put my name on there. But my other socials are not. Some of them are not family friendly. My Twitter is crazy. There is a lot of Spanish on there. I tweet in Spanish a lot. I don't really use Spanish on Instagram that much. I do tweet in Spanish. I retweet a lot of stuff in Spanish, but it's crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. So,
Same. Okay.
but my Twitter is at quickest tempers QUICKESTTEMPA because I lost my first account from being crazy. And my Instagram is quick temper, just like YouTube. And I post sometimes I post funny TikToks in Spanish, but there's not much Spanish going on there, just fitness stuff. So if you want Spanish stuff, or you want me to, yeah, I get on live just like you do. So if people want to see me on YouTube live, practice your Spanish on there. Good. Follow my YouTube channel.
Okay, suena excelente. Thank you again.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Good conversation.